All right, so get ready because today we're diving into something a little different.
Oh.
Yeah, we're taking a look at the 2023 Cypriot Corporate Income Tax Form,
Okay.
the IC4.
Interesting.
Now, I know taxes might not sound like the most thrilling topic,
Yeah.
but trust me on this one.
Right.
This is way more interesting than it sounds.
Okay.
We're going to be like detectives,
Okay.
uncovering clues about the Cypriot economic landscape
Oh, wow.
hidden within this. Yeah.
I like it.
So the source material we're working with today is it's straight from the official documentation,
Okay.
and it's packed.
Yeah.
It's absolutely packed with codes and cross-references, all sorts of instructions.
It's complicated stuff.
It is. And so imagine, you're a business owner in Cyprus, and you're trying to navigate all of this. You would probably need a guide.
Right. Yeah. Some help. Yeah.
You need somebody to walk you through it, and that's where the tax representative comes in.
Oh, okay.
The document emphasizes that only this representative, the prosopos, can actually submit the form
Electronically.
electronically. Yeah. So who do you think this is in practice?
Well, most likely this would be the company's auditor, I would guess.
Yeah.
Someone who's got that, that professional, that kind of oversight.
Professional oversight. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So it seems like accuracy and accountability,
Big priorities.
huge priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can really see that precision. It's evident in the way that the form is structured.
Yeah.
Like one example of that is the way that they use a system of codes to categorize different types of companies.
Oh, interesting.
And these are the taxpayer categories that really determine which sections of the form need to be filled out, and how certain calculations are even performed.
So it's like each code unlocks a specific set of rules and requirements,
Exactly.
tailoring the form to the individual circumstances of each business.
Yes, exactly. And it's really a way of ensuring that the tax system is both comprehensive and fair, because it's taking into account the unique characteristics of different industries and business structures.
And some of these codes are surprisingly specific, like Code 48
Oh,
for insurance companies
okay.
in Sector 7.
Wow.
They can actually submit the form themselves,
Okay.
but only if they have a very particular activity code,
Uh-huh.
66021.
So specific.
It's so specific, yeah.
Wow.
Layers upon layers.
What I find interesting about that is it really suggests a deep level of regulatory, granularity.
Okay.
So it's not just that the Cypriot tax system is categorizing companies broadly, but it's really drilling down into these very, very specific activities within each sector.
Yeah, it's like this seemingly mundane form is really a window into a much, much larger system
Yes.
of rules, regulations, economic priority.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this system of codes that is kind of shaping the experience for different businesses. What else jumps out at you just from these initial pages?
Well, one thing that really caught my eye was the emphasis on shareholder information.
Okay.
So for certain taxpayer categories, particularly codes 42, 43, and 47, companies are required to fill out this really detailed shareholders section,
Okay.
even if there's only one shareholder.
Oh, wow. So even if it's a single shareholder, they have to go into detail.
They do.
Interesting. Why single out those specific types of companies? Why do you think they need that extra scrutiny?
Well, it likely reflects Cyprus's commitment to financial transparency, I would say,
Okay.
particularly in light of global efforts to combat money laundering and tax evasion.
That's a good point, yeah.
So by requiring this detailed shareholder information for these specific categories, it's really aligning itself with these international standards and demonstrating that commitment to a fair and transparent financial system.
Yeah, so even in this seemingly technical detail, we're kind of seeing this connection to broader global trends.
Yes, definitely.
And Cyprus's efforts to position itself as a responsible player on this international stage.
Absolutely. And as we dig deeper, I think we'll find even more examples of how this tax form reflects both the specificities of the Cypriot context, but also this interconnectedness with, the wider world.
This is already giving me a whole new perspective on what tax forms can tell us about a country.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see them less as bureaucratic hurdles and more as these intricate puzzles,
Yeah.
reflecting a country's economic DNA.
That's a great way to put it. And as we go further, I think you'll agree that this puzzle gets even more fascinating
Okay.
as we delve into the kind of intricate web of dependencies that lie at the heart of this form.
Dependencies. Okay, you've officially piqued my curiosity. Let's move on to that in part 2.
All right.
Okay, so we're back and ready to kind of untangle this web of dependencies.
All right.
What exactly does that mean, like, in the context of this tax form?
Well, imagine the form as this kind of complex machine,
Okay.
with all these interconnected gears and levers.
Okay.
And each piece kind of influences the others. It creates a chain reaction.
I'm picturing like a Rube Goldberg machine,
Yes,
but with like numbers and tax regulations
exactly.
instead of marbles and domino.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And just like in a Rube Goldberg machine, each step in this form kind of triggers the next,
Uh-huh.
ensuring this logical flow of information
Okay.
and a really comprehensive picture of the company's financial situation.
So it's not just about filling in, random boxes.
No,
There's a deliberate structure
there is.
with each section kind of building on the previous one.
Exactly. And the source document actually gives some really fascinating examples
Okay.
of these dependencies. For instance, filling out section 2.3.3, which deals with stocks,
Uh-huh.
becomes mandatory if any of a long list of fields related to inventory have a non-zero value.
Oh, interesting. So even if they have a tiny bit of inventory, they have to provide all this detail
They do.
about how they manage their stock.
It's all about getting that complete picture
Yeah.
of their assets.
It's not just about assets, though. It extends to professional oversight, too, right?
It does, yeah.
Like,
The document states that the name and tax ID of the auditor or the tax advisor
Right.
must be provided if certain conditions are met.
okay.
So, for example, like belonging to a specific taxpayer category or having a particular type of financial statement.
So they want to know who's helping these companies
Yeah.
navigate all these rules.
Navigate this complexity.
Reinforces that sense of accountability.
Absolutely. It's a way of ensuring that these qualified professionals are involved in the process,
Yeah.
which really helps to maintain the integrity of the tax system, protects both the government and the taxpayers.
Yeah. It's all starting to make sense now. These dependencies are like safeguards,
Yes.
guiding companies through the form,
Uh-huh.
making sure they capture all this necessary information.
That's right. And one of the most impressive examples of this whole system, this intricate system of dependencies,
Yeah.
is the calculation for taxable income,
Okay.
or as it's called in the form, for legiteo isovima
Okay.
in part 3 of the form.
Wow. Okay.
It involves numerous cross-references to different sections.
It sounds complicated.
It creates this complex formula
Yep.
that takes into account various income and expense categories,
Uh-huh.
adjustments, allowances.
So they're really trying to get down to the nitty-gritty
They
of a
are.
company's financial performance.
It really highlights the meticulous approach that the Cypriot tax system takes to determine the company's tax liability.
Yeah.
It's not a simple one-size-fits-all calculation,
Right.
It's really tailored to the specific circumstances of each business.
So it sounds like accuracy and attention to detail are, like, really paramount
They are,
when it comes to filling out this form.
because even a seemingly small error or omission could have these ripple effects
Oh, wow. Okay.
throughout the
Yeah.
entire document and potentially impact a company's tax liability.
Okay, so it's a good reminder that you can't just skim through these forms
No,
and hope for the best. You really have to understand, like, the logic
you do.
behind the structure and why each piece of information is there.
And that's where technology really comes in.
Okay.
Throughout the source document, we see all these hints of how the Cypriot tax system is becoming increasingly automated.
Yeah, like what?
There are pre-filled fields, web services,
Oh, interesting.
automated calculations. It helps streamline the process and reduce the risk of human error.
So they're trying to make it easier for businesses to navigate this complexity,
Yeah,
but at the same time make sure it's accurate and secure.
exactly. It's all about finding that balance.
Yeah, okay. But you mentioned some peculiar instructions and limitations.
Yeah.
What caught your attention there?
Well, one interesting detail is the constraint on the end date of the accounting period,
Okay,
or as it's called here, periodos logariasmon.
okay.
It can only be up to December 31st of the tax year.
Why so specific?
Well, it's likely tied to the tax year alignment in Cyprus.
Okay,
So by setting this constraint, the authorities ensure that all companies are reporting their financial data within the same time frame.
makes sense. It's all about standardization.
Yeah,
So they can process and compare this data easily.
exactly. And another intriguing detail is the limited control users have over modifying certain pre-filled fields.
Pre-filled fields. So those are what, automatically populated?
Exactly. They're automatically populated with information from previous filings
Okay.
or other official sources.
So that really streamlines things.
It does. It really helps reduce errors.
But why restrict the ability to modify them? What if there's like a legitimate reason to update that information?
Right. Well, it's a balance
Yeah.
between convenience and security.
Uh-huh.
So while the pre-filled fields offer this efficiency, um, unrestricted modifications could really open the door to manipulation, you know,
Yeah.
intentional or accidental.
People messing things up
Exactly.
either intentionally or unintentionally.
It's like they're saying, we trust you, but we've got to protect the system.
Yeah.
And the document actually specifies that modifications to those pre-filled fields are only allowed under very specific circumstances.
Okay, like what?
Like when submitting the form through an XML file.
XML file. That sounds pretty technical.
Yeah, XML files are this structured data format that's often preferred for secure data transmission,
Okay.
and they can be digitally signed,
Okay.
which helps verify the authenticity of the information.
Yeah, so they know it hasn't been tampered with.
Exactly. It's like adding this digital seal of approval.
That makes sense. You want that level of security when you're dealing with sensitive financial information.
Absolutely. And it's yet another example of how the Cypriot tax system is really leveraging technology to enhance security and efficiency.
Okay. So we've got these pre-filled fields, structured data formats, all these dependencies. This tax form is clearly a carefully designed system,
Yes.
but it also sounds pretty intimidating,
It can be,
especially for someone who's not familiar with all this, with tax regulations.
especially for the uninitiated. Yes.
But it sounds like the document does offer some guidance
It
to
does.
help people along the way.
It does.
Like what?
Well, one amusing detail is the repeated mention of error messages.
Error messages?
Apparently, the system will display a message to the user if there are any discrepancies in certain calculations.
Oh, interesting. So it's like it has a built-in advisor.
It's like having that virtual tax advisor
Yeah,
gently nudging you in the right direction.
that's actually pretty thoughtful
It was.
in a way.
It shows that the authorities are aware that, people make mistakes.
Yep.
And they're trying to help taxpayers avoid those costly errors.
So it's not just about, enforcing rules. It's also about providing support
It is.
and guidance. Like they're trying to make this complex system a little more user-friendly.
Exactly. And that focus on user experience is becoming increasingly important
Yeah.
as tax systems all around the world are embracing this digitalization and automation.
Well, this deep dive into the Cypriot corporate tax form has definitely opened my eyes to the complexity and the thoughtfulness that goes into designing these systems.
Yeah.
It's not just about collecting taxes. It's about creating a fair and efficient, secure process.
That's right.
That works for everyone.
Exactly. And it's a process that's constantly evolving as well
Yeah.
as technology advances.
Right.
And global economic trends shift.
I'm curious to hear more about how this form reflects those broader trends. What else caught your eye in the source documents? So we talked about codes and dependencies and even like these virtual tax advisors. What other kind of gems did you uncover?
One thing that really stood out to me was the mention of a TP study,
A TP study. Okay.
which stands for Transfer Pricing Study.
Okay.
And it's required in certain cases, and I think this is where we get a glimpse into how Cyprus is addressing a pretty key issue in international taxation.
Transfer pricing study. That sounds intriguing, but also maybe a little intimidating.
It can be.
Can you break it down for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So transfer pricing essentially refers to the prices that companies within the same multinational group
Uh-huh.
charge each other for goods or services.
Okay.
So imagine like a large corporation with subsidiaries
Yeah.
in different countries.
Okay.
Often those subsidiaries do business with each other,
Right.
buying and selling products, sharing resources.
Makes sense.
Transfer pricing is all about setting the prices
Okay.
for those internal transactions.
Okay, so why is that such a big deal for tax authorities?
Well, because companies can sometimes manipulate those transfer prices
Oh, okay.
to shift profits
Okay.
to subsidiaries that are located in countries with lower tax rates.
Oh, I see.
And this practice is known as profit shifting,
Okay.
and it can really erode the tax revenues for the countries where the actual economic activity is taking place.
So it's like a company making it look like a subsidiary in a low-tax haven is doing more business than it actually is.
Exactly.
Just to lower its overall tax burden.
Yes, and that's why transfer pricing is it's such a hot topic in international taxation these days.
Yeah.
Governments are really scrutinizing these intra-group transactions
Right.
to make sure that they're being conducted at arm's length,
Arm's length meaning what?
meaning at prices that would be expected between independent companies.
Oh, okay.
So there's no funny business going on.
Right, right. So how does this TP study fit in to the Cypriot corporate tax form then?
Well, by requiring a TP study, in certain cases, the Cypriot tax authorities are signaling that they're paying attention to transfer pricing, and
Okay.
then they're taking steps to prevent that profit shifting.
So companies operating in Cyprus, if they're doing a lot of transactions with related parties.
They might need to provide pretty detailed documentation
Okay.
to justify how they're doing their transfer pricing.
It's another example of how this like seemingly mundane tax form is really reflecting these broader global
It
concerns.
is.
And Cyprus kind of trying to keep up with international standards.
Exactly. It shows that even within a relatively small country like Cyprus,
Uh-huh.
tax regulations are deeply interconnected with, global economic trends
Yeah.
and the ongoing efforts to try to create a more fair and transparent international tax system.
Well, this whole deep dive has been really eye-opening. Who knew that a single tax form could reveal so much about a country's economic policies, priorities, its place in the global landscape?
It's amazing, isn't it? It's a reminder that even the most technical documents can tell a story
Yeah.
if you know how to read them.
And sometimes those stories are a lot more fascinating
They can be.
than we expect. We uncovered codes, dependencies, virtual tax advisors. Now we've got this international intrigue with transfer pricing. I have a feeling that this Cypriot corporate tax form has more secrets to reveal,
Oh, I bet it does.
but we'll have to save those for another deep dive.
Definitely. Always more to explore.
Yeah, but for now, I think we've given our listener a pretty good understanding of this particular piece of the puzzle.
I think so too. We've gone from being pretty intimidated by this form to appreciating its complexity
Yeah.
and even finding a little bit of humor
Yeah, definitely.
in its quirks.
And hopefully our listener now sees tax forms not as these bureaucratic hurdles, but as like windows into how a country's economic system works. Exactly. So the next time you encounter a really dense government document, don't just groan and reach for a calculator. Take a closer look. You might be surprised by what you discover. You might even find yourself enjoying the process of deciphering the system, just like we did today.
It's all about approaching these things with a sense of curiosity and a willingness to learn.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this fascinating journey into the world of Cypriot corporate taxation. Until next time, happy diving.